The research project that Allison Alves is hoping to raise $15,000 for, can you talk a little bit about what you hope to accomplish with that project?
Sure. We are studying mostly the genetics that underlie cancer metastasis. And my lab, I'm very proud to say, of the 33 known metastasis suppressor genes, those that block metastasis, my lab discovered 8 of them. So we've been doing this for a while. But a few years ago, looking at some data that we had, coupled with some data from a friend of mine, we said, wait a minute, there's another genome in our cells, not just the DNA in your nucleus. It's in an organelle called the mitochondrion. And mitochondria, you learn in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, are the powerhouse of the cell. They convert food into energy that the cell can use. But they have their own DNA. And you inherit that DNA only from your mother. And my friend, Kent Hunter at the National Cancer Institute, did an experiment where he was crossing these mice and showed that some of them developed metastases and some did not. So just in the background, genetic background, they were either protected or predisposed. And so we said, wait a minute, could that be from the mitochondria because of the design of his experiment? To make a long story short, we've made reagents that allow us to test this, and we have a candidate set of molecules encoded by the mitochondrial DNA that correlate very well with changes in metastatic potential for breast cancer and also melanoma. So whether those are the same, we don't know, but that's what we've studied. And this molecule that we're looking at is in a transfer RNA. And not to get too much in the weeds, but most of us have studied DNA. You make a messenger RNA, and that goes to an organelle called the ribosome, and the ribosome then translates that messenger RNA into protein. Well, what transfer RNAs do is they're shuttlecraft. They carry amino acids to build the protein. And their target, which amino acid comes, is based upon the sequence of that message. Okay, so that's what tRNAs have been known to do for 50, 60, well, it's 1953, so we're talking a little longer, 70 years. But in the last decade or so, tRNAs have been found to make little fragments, specific fragments, and those fragments, cleverly named tRNA fragments, play lots of roles in cells. They can be secreted, they can go to the nucleus and regulate how genes are expressed in the nucleus, they can bind proteins and affect how stable they are, and we actually have very preliminary data that they may be communication to bacteria to change the microbiome, the bacteria that constitute our gut. So we're trying to characterize these tRNA fragments so that then we can design experiments to study whether they're responsible or not. We're at the very earliest stages because very few people are studying these, so we're having to develop new tools to do this, and that's what my lab is currently doing.
Well, we're very happy to be able to raise the funds. I'm confident we're going to raise the funds so we can help this, and so we can help to support this important research, because obviously this is an area that needs continued study. While we have many more treatments than we used to have, we still need to come up with a cure. So
can I add one extra thing to that? The sequences of mitochondrial DNA can actually be used to define what we call races in people. So they can be used to define our ancestry. So Africans have different mitochondrial sequences than Asians versus Europeans versus North American, South American, and so on. And so we think these studies with these genetic changes in the mitochondria may help explain why there are racial disparities with regard to developing breast cancer and developing metastases. So
that'll be very
we're
important.
actually studying that. So I think that would also be helpful for your donors to be aware that we're not only studying something that's focused on metastasis, but there's a broader thing. Why is it some people suffer versus others get through things fairly easily in the breast cancer treatment?
Well, gosh, and that'd be so important because obviously Alice and Allies who've been focusing on health equity, and we've been looking at the data, for example, on Black African American women, 40% higher mortality rate.
Right.
Well, we need to make a difference in there, so that's great that you're studying that as well.
And one of the important aspects of that, and we know it's true, there are differences in access to care that contribute strongly to that. But there are some people who believe that's the whole answer, and that's not the whole answer. We don't want to imply in any way that mitochondria are the answer, because even if we find somebody's at high risk, they have to have access to the right care. And
it's a complex, isn't it?
That's why we'll work with other people you've funded, Priyanka Sharma and Joan and others here at the Cancer Center. We're going to all approach this from different angles, but we're looking at the same target.
Yeah. Hopefully achieving the same outcome.
That's the goal.
Positive outcome.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you, Dr. Welch. I really
Thank you.
enjoyed visiting with you and hearing a bit more about your project.
Thank you for all you're doing to help us too.